Dr. Lisa Martinez stood at the viewing window of the USNS Mercy, watching the stars streak past as the massive hospital ship cruised through space. The gentle hum of medical equipment behind her was a familiar comfort, a reminder of their vital mission to help those in need across the frontier worlds. She checked her tablet, reviewing the day's patient list. The ship's 3,000 beds were nearly half full with colonists suffering from various conditions that their small outpost medical facilities couldn't handle. Some needed complex surgeries, others required treatments for exotic diseases picked up on newly settled worlds. "Dr. Martinez, we need you in Bay 4, Nurse Kevin Wright's voice came through her communicator. "The mining colony patient's fever is spiking again." "On my way," she replied, already moving through the pristine white corridors. The USNS Mercy was Earth's most advanced hospital ship, a floating city of healing equipped with everything from basic medical base to cutting-edge surgical units. The ship's massive Red Cross marking on its hull was visible from miles away, a symbol of hope and health throughout human space. Chief Medical Officer Paul Bennett met her outside Bay 4. His usually neat gray hair was messy, showing he'd been up most of the night shift. "The patient's bacterial infection is resistant to our standard treatments," he explained as they walked in together. "We might need to try that new broad-spectrum antibiotic we got from the Mars labs." The patient, a young colonist who'd been injured in a mining accident, tossed restlessly on the bed. His skin was flushed with fever, and the monitors showed his temperature was dangerously high. Dr. Martinez and CMO Bennett worked together, adjusting medications and checking vital signs while Nurse Wright assisted. "You know," Bennett said as they waited for the new medication to take effect, "I remember when we could barely treat a common cold in space. Now look at us, performing complex surgeries while traveling at faster than light speeds." Dr. Martinez nodded, watching the patient's fever slowly begin to drop. The ship's medical capabilities were incredible, but what made her most proud was its mission. The USNS Mercy served everyone, regardless of their planet of origin or political alignment. In a galaxy where tensions between different human colonies and alien species often ran high, the hospital ship remained neutral, dedicated only to saving lives. Later that day, she sat in the staff meeting room with other senior medical officers, discussing their upcoming stops. The holographic display showed their planned route through the frontier systems, each point marking a colony that needed their help. "We'll reach the Centauri colonies in 3 days," Officer Diane Fuller explained, pointing to the map. She was in charge of coordinating the ship's movements with various colonies' needs. "They've got about 20 critical cases waiting for us, mostly radiation exposure from their new reactor installation." Dr. Martinez made notes on her tablet, already planning how to handle the incoming patients. The ship's vast medical bays could be reconfigured for different types of treatments, and they'd need to set up the radiation units. As the meeting wrapped up, she took a moment to look around at her colleagues. The medical staff came from all over Earth and its colonies, bringing together different backgrounds and experiences. But they shared a common purpose: to help those who needed it most. The ship's AI announced the end of the day shift as Dr. Martinez finished her rounds. She stopped by the observation deck one last time, watching the stars. Out here, far from Earth, their hospital ship was often the only hope for critically ill or injured colonists. The USNS Mercy carried more than just medical supplies and equipment. It carried the promise that help would come to those in need, no matter how far away they were. What no one on board knew was that this peaceful mission was about to face its greatest test. For now, though, the hospital ship continued its journey through space, its red cross glowing against the black void, a beacon of hope for all who saw it. The first warning came as a slight shudder through the USNS Mercy's hull. Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her patient's chart, frowning at the strange vibration. The ship's smooth ride rarely had any disturbances, especially while in faster-than-light travel. "Doctor, we're picking up multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace," the ship's AI announced calmly. "Signs indicate Centauri warships." Before she could respond, The entire medical bay lit up with red emergency lights. Chief Medical Officer Bennett's voice came through the ship-wide communication system. All medical staff, secure your patients. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Dr. Martinez immediately began helping Nurse Wright lock down the medical equipment around their patient. Through the bay windows, she saw 3 sleek, dark ships appearing in the void of space. Their angular shapes were unmistakably Xen3 design, but that made no sense. The Xen3 civilization had signed the Galactic Medical Neutrality Treaty, just like everyone else. The first blast hit the Mercy before anyone could properly react. The ship's shields, designed mainly for protection against space debris and radiation, flickered weakly against the military-grade weapons. The impact threw several staff members to the floor. All personnel, begin emergency evacuation procedures. The ship's AI announced. Priority 1 patients to escape pods. Medical staff follow Protocol 7. Dr. Martinez helped her patient onto a mobile bed. The young colonist was still weak from his fever, but alert enough to understand the danger. Around her, other medical staff were doing the same, moving critical patients toward the designated evacuation routes. Another blast rocked the ship. Through the chaos, she heard CMO Bennett coordinating with different sections. Bay 2, report status. Bay 3, begin moving life support patients. Bay 4, secure all hazardous materials. The emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow as Dr. Martinez and Nurse Wright pushed their patient through the corridors. Ahead of them, other staff members were helping more patients toward the escape pod section. The ship's minimal security team, led by Officer Jane Patterson, was directing traffic at each intersection. "They're targeting our engines," Officer Patterson shouted over the noise. "Keep moving toward Section C pods. Sections A and B are already compromised." The next hit was worse than the others. The lights flickered, and for a moment, artificial gravity wavered. Dr. Martinez grabbed onto the bed to stay upright, watching in horror as medical supplies floated off shelves before gravity returned. "This is impossible," Nurse Wright said as they reached the escape pod section. "We're clearly marked as a medical vessel. They can see our red cross. Why are they attacking us?" Dr. Martinez helped secure their patient in an escape pod while trying to make sense of it all. The Xen3 were known for their strict honor code. Attacking a hospital ship wasn't just against galactic law. It went against everything their culture claimed to stand for. Through the corridor windows, she could see more Xen3 ships appearing. Their weapons were precisely targeted, disabling the Mercy's engines and communication arrays, while leaving the medical bays mostly intact. This wasn't random violence. They had a plan. "Dr. Martinez," CNO Bennett's voice crackled through her communicator. "Get to the secure medical data core. They're trying to breach Section E. We can't let them access our research databases." She looked at Nurse Wright, who nodded. "Go, I'll finish here." Running through the shaking corridors, Dr. Martinez passed dozens of crew members helping patients. The ship's AI was still calmly giving instructions, but static was creeping into its voice as systems took damage. Another blast hit, and she had to brace against a wall to stay standing. The attack made no sense, but one thing was becoming clear, that Xen3 weren't trying to destroy them. They wanted something on the ship, something worth violating every rule of galactic civilization to obtain. And as Dr. Martinez ran toward the medical data core, she realized this attack might be about much more than just one hospital ship. Smoke filled the corridors of the USNS Mercy as Dr. Lisa Martinez made her way through the damaged sections. 6 hours had passed since the Xen3 ships had suddenly jumped away, leaving the hospital ship badly wounded but still intact. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the walls, and the air smelled of burnt circuitry. "We've got 14 critical patients in Base 6. Nurse Wright's voice came through her damaged communicator. "Life support is running on backup power. We need more portable oxygen units." Dr. Martinez changed direction, heading for the emergency supply storage. The attack had left them with over 200 injured crew members on top of their existing patients. Every step she took reminded her of their desperate situation. The ship's engines were dead, long-range communications were out, and they were drifting in a rarely traveled sector of space. She found Officer Jane Patterson in the storage room, already loading oxygen units onto a hover cart. The Marine's uniform was stained with smoke, and a bandage covered a cut on her forehead. "The good news is they didn't get the medical data core," Patterson said, helping Dr. Martinez lift another unit. "The bad news is I don't think that was their main target." Together, they pushed the cart through the damaged corridors. Patterson explained what security had pieced together. 3 other human hospital ships have been hit in the past month. We just got the information from a damaged backup communication system. Someone specifically targeting our medical vessels. They reached Bay 6, where CMO Bennett was working with a team to stabilize the critical patients. The large medical bay, usually bright and clean, was now crowded with beds and portable equipment. Some patients were from the original colony missions, others were crew members injured in the attack. "The XN3 knew exactly where to hit us," Bennett said as they distributed the oxygen units. "They disabled our engines but left the medical bays mostly intact. They were looking for something specific." Dr. Martinez checked on each patient, adjusting medications and life support settings. The ship's backup systems were working, but they wouldn't last forever. They needed help, but the nearest rescue ships would take days to reach them, if their emergency beacon was even working. Later, in what was left of the command center, she joined a meeting with the surviving senior staff. The ship's main view screen was cracked but still working, showing their current position and status. The damage reports were worse than she'd feared. "Our main engines are completely destroyed," Officer Diane Fuller explained, pointing to a diagram. "We're running on emergency power, and half our medical equipment is offline. But there's something else." She brought up a series of images showing their attackers. The XN3 ships were carrying some kind of biological containment units. Our sensors picked them up right before they jumped away. The revelation sent a chill through the room. Dr. Martinez remembered the research files in the medical data core. Files about new diseases appearing in the frontier colonies. "They weren't just attacking us," she said slowly. "They were trying to stop us from treating something. Something they created." Officer Patterson nodded grimly. "A bioweapon, and they didn't want us finding a cure." CMO Bennett stood up, his face showing exhaustion but determination. "Right now, we need to focus on survival. We have over 500 people on this ship who need our help. We can figure out the why later." Dr. Martinez spent the next few hours helping to set up a makeshift intensive care unit in one of the less damaged bays. As she worked, she thought about the XN3 ships and their strange cargo. The attack wasn't random violence. It was part of something bigger, something worse. Through the bay windows, she could see the stars, unchanged and distant. Somewhere out there, the XN3 were planning their next move, but they had made a serious mistake. They had attacked a hospital ship, violated every rule of galactic civilization, and left witnesses. When Earth found out what happened here, there would be consequences. The real question was, could they survive long enough to tell their story? Admiral Samuel Cooper stood in Earth's Central Command, watching the emergency transmission from the USNS Mercy play for the 5th time. The damaged hospital ship's message was broken and filled with static, but its meaning was clear. His hands gripped the edge of the display table as he listened to Dr. Martinez's report about the XN3 attack. 4 hospital ships, he said quietly, looking at the markers on the star map. All attacked within the past month, all by XN3 warships. Red dots showed where each attack had happened, forming a pattern along the frontier worlds. Officer Michelle Grant from the Diplomatic Corps stepped forward. Her usual calm expression was replaced by contained anger. "The XN3 ambassador is claiming no knowledge of these attacks. They're suggesting pirates might have stolen their ships." "Pirates don't have access to that many XN3 warships," Cooper replied. He brought up the sensor data from the Mercy's damaged systems. These were military vessels, operating with military precision. The room fell silent as more officials arrived for the emergency meeting. Representatives from every major Earth nation and colony filled the seats around the large conference table. On screens around the room, more leaders joined virtually from their locations across human space. The USNS Mercy is stranded in Sector 7, Cooper explained to the gathering. Life support is running on backup power. They have over 500 people aboard, including critical patients from the frontier colonies. But that's not all. He played the part of the message about the biological containment units. The room erupted in angry voices. Attacking hospital ships was bad enough, but biological weapons were forbidden under every galactic treaty. Earth had signed peace agreements with the XN3, specifically banning such weapons. Officer Grant accessed her datapad. We're getting reports from other ships now. 3 more hospital ships have changed course to avoid Sentry space. The Avalon colony is requesting immediate military protection for their medical facilities. Cooper nodded to his second-in-command, who brought up a new display showing Earth's available ships. I've already ordered the 4th Fleet to move to defensive positions around our major medical centers. But we need to do more than just defend. The Earth President's voice came through the main speakers. Admiral Cooper, you have authorization to mount a rescue mission for the Mercy and her crew. But remember, we're dealing with a civilization that signed peace treaties with us. We need proof before we take any military action. With respect, Madam President, Cooper replied. Attacking clearly marked hospital ships is an act of war. The proof is in the wreckage of our medical vessels and the deaths of our medical personnel. The discussion continued for hours. Some leaders wanted immediate military action. Others urged caution, fearing a full war with the XN3. But as more data came in from other sources, the pattern became clear. That XN3 weren't just attacking random targets. They were systematically targeting Earth's most advanced medical ships and facilities. Finally, the President spoke again. Admiral Cooper, you have new orders. First, rescue the Mercy and her crew. Second, gather all possible evidence about these attacks. And third, she paused, her voice hardening, prepare a response fleet. If the XN3 think they can attack our hospital ships without consequences, they're about to learn how wrong they are. Cooper began issuing orders immediately. Rescue ships were already moving toward the Mercy's last known position. The 7th Fleet was being mobilized, with ships gathering from across human space. But he knew they had to move carefully. One wrong step could start a full-scale war. As the command center buzzed with activity, Cooper looked again at the image of the damaged hospital ship. The XN3 had violated something sacred, the protection of those who helped others. Earth's response would be measured, but it would be powerful. They would show the galaxy that attacking healers was a line that should never be crossed. Dr. Lisa Martinez and Officer Jane Patterson moved carefully through the damaged lower decks of the USNS Mercy. Their emergency lights cast long shadows in the darkness, and their breath formed small clouds in the cold air. Most power had been diverted to keep the medical bays running, leaving these sections dark and freezing. The Sentry boarding party spent the most time down here, Patterson said, checking her handheld scanner. But according to the ship's logs, there's nothing in this section except old storage units. They reached a sealed door, its control panel dark. Patterson used a manual override, and they pushed it open together. Inside, they found rows of storage containers, most untouched. But in the back corner, several units had been forced open. These were supposed to contain old medical records, Dr. Martinez said, examining the broken containers. Paper copies we kept as backups. Why would they want these? Officer Eric Walsh's voice came through their communicators. Dr. Martinez, are you seeing any files from the Avalon colony outbreak? That's what I'm being asked to look for specifically. Martinez searched through the scattered papers. Yes, here they are. Records from 3 months ago, when that new fever spread through the mining colonies. She stopped suddenly, realizing something. The fever that we developed a cure for, just 2 weeks before the attacks began. Patterson's scanner beeped. I'm picking up traces of biological material on these containers. The XN3 were testing these papers for something. They carefully collected samples and brought them to one of the few working labs on the upper decks. C&O Bennett was waiting for them with a portable analysis unit. As they worked, more pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. The Avalon fever wasn't natural, Bennett said, looking at the test results. These readings show signs of engineered DNA structures. It was a test run of their bioweapon. Dr. Martinez remembered the patients they had treated. The fever had been strange, affecting some colonists severely while others showed no symptoms at all. At the time, they thought it was just another frontier world virus. Now she understood. They had accidentally discovered the XN3's secret weapon. That's why they attacked our hospital ships, Patterson said. We had found a cure for their bioweapon without even knowing what it was. They couldn't let us keep that information. Officer Walsh connected with them through a secure channel. Earth Command confirms similar patterns at other attack sites. The XN3 were thorough, but they didn't get everything. Each ship kept different pieces of the puzzle. Working through the night, they gathered all the evidence they could find. The XN3 had planned carefully, developing their weapon and testing it quietly on remote colonies. But they hadn't counted on the effectiveness of Earth's medical ships and the skill of their crews. Dr. Martinez spent hours documenting everything about the Avalon fever cases, symptoms, treatments, and most importantly, the cure they had developed. Even with limited power and damaged equipment, they'd managed to compile a complete report. The rescue fleet will be here in 6 hours, Walsh informed them. But we're also picking up long-range scans of XN3 ships moving in this direction. They must have realized they missed something. Patterson began copying their findings to multiple secure drives. They won't get another chance. Not with what we know now. Through the lab windows, Dr. Martinez could see the stars and the empty space where their attackers had been. The XN3 had tried to destroy the evidence of their crimes, but in doing so, they had revealed their whole plan. Their attack on the hospital ships wasn't just an act of war, it was an attempt to cover up something much worse. As she finished recording her findings, Martinez thought about all the patients they had saved from the Avalon fever. The XN3 had used sick and dying colonists as test subjects for their weapon. That wasn't just against the laws of war, it was against everything that medicine stood for. When Earth learned the full truth, there would be no hiding behind diplomatic excuses. The evidence was clear, and justice would follow. Captain Daniel Rogers stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Vigilant, watching as his rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the damaged USNS Mercy. 5 more ships emerged behind him, their weapons ready but not yet active. They had come prepared for a fight, but Rogers hoped they wouldn't need it. Multiple XN3 ships detected, his sensor officer reported. 3 destroyers, approaching from the far side of the sector. They're on an attack vector. Rogers smiled grimly. Right on time, just like we expected. He opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. All ships move to defense pattern Echo. Protect the Mercy at all costs. The Earth ships moved into position, their formation creating a protective barrier around the hospital ship. Rogers had studied the XN3 attack patterns from the previous encounters. This time, they wouldn't find an easy target. On the Mercy, Dr. Lisa Martinez watched the rescue fleet arrive through the medical bay windows. The sight of Earth ships brought cheers from the patients and staff who had spent days wondering if help would reach them in time. Rescue shuttles are approaching, Officer Jane Patterson announced over the ship's comm system. All critical patients, prepare for immediate evacuation. The first shots came from the XN3 ships, trying to break through to the Mercy. But this time, they faced prepared opponents. The Earth fleet's shields held strong, and their return fire was precise and devastating. Target their weapon systems only, Rogers ordered his gunners. Show them the difference between attacking a hospital ship and facing real warships. His crew responded with expert precision, their shots disabling the XN3 vessels without destroying them. While the battle raged outside, rescue teams boarded the Mercy. Dr. Martinez and CMO Bennett coordinated the evacuation of their most critical patients. Years of emergency drills were paying off as the medical staff worked quickly and efficiently. Captain Rogers, Officer Eric Walsh called from his communication station. "We're picking up transmissions from the 10-3 ships. They're requesting to surrender." Rogers nodded. "Accept their surrender, but keep weapons locked on target. We're not taking any chances." He turned to his second in command. "Send in the boarding teams. I want every piece of evidence from those ships secured." The Earth Marines moved swiftly, boarding the disabled HFY vessels. They found more proof of the biological weapons program, research data, testing equipment, and containment units similar to those seen during the attack on the Mercy. Back on the hospital ship, Dr. Martinez handed over copies of their findings to Earth intelligence officers. "Everything is here," she explained. "The bioweapon data, the attack records, and most importantly, the cure we developed." The evacuation continued through the next few hours. Earth engineers began repairs on the Mercy's critical systems, while medical ships from the rescue fleet took on her patients. The HFY crew members were taken into custody, their ships secured by Earth forces. Captain Rogers visited the Mercy's command center once the situation was stable. "Your distress call reached Earth just in time," he told the assembled senior staff. "We found similar evidence on 3 other attacked hospital ships. The HFY's entire plan is exposed now." Dr. Martinez looked at the tactical display showing their ships surrounding the surrendered HFY vessels. "They thought attacking hospital ships would hide their secret," she said. "Instead, it brought them down." Officer Patterson added, "And we found something they didn't expect, a cure for their weapon. Their own attack gave us the proof we needed." As the Earth fleet secured the area, Rogers received new orders from command. A larger fleet was already moving toward HFY space, carrying evidence of their crimes to present to the Galactic Council. The attack on the hospital ships had backfired completely, exposing a conspiracy that would shake the foundations of galactic peace. "Sometimes," Rogers said, watching his crews at work, "the best victory isn't just defeating your enemy. It's showing them that their actions have consequences." He turned to Dr. Martinez and her staff. "You did more than just survive their attack. You revealed the truth. Now we'll make sure everyone knows it." Dr. Lisa Martinez stood before the Galactic Council, her medical uniform crisp and clean as she prepared to testify. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 100 worlds, all gathered to witness the trial of the HFY military leadership. 6 months had passed since the attack on the USNS Mercy, and now it was time for justice. The fever appeared first in the outer colonies. She explained to the assembly, her voice steady. "We thought it was natural. We didn't know we were treating victims of a weapons test." Behind her, large screens showed medical data and patient records from the hospital ships. The HFY defendants sat in a secured area, their once proud military leaders now facing charges of war crimes. Their plan to test bioweapons on human colonists and then destroy the evidence by attacking hospital ships had failed completely. Officer Jane Patterson testified next, presenting security footage from the Mercy's damaged systems. "They attacked 4 hospital ships in total," she said, pointing to a map of the incidents. Each attack was carefully planned to destroy evidence of their biological weapons program. In the months since the attacks, Earth had been busy. The USNS Mercy had been fully repaired, its medical bays upgraded with new defensive systems. Similar improvements were being made to all Earth's hospital ships, ensuring they could continue their missions while staying safe. Captain Daniel Rogers described the rescue operation and the evidence found aboard the captured HFY ships. Their own vessels contained proof of their crimes, he told the council. They carried equipment designed specifically to destroy medical records and research data. The trial lasted for 2 weeks. Survivors from all 4 hospital ships testified, along with colonial officials and medical experts. The evidence was overwhelming. That HFY leaders had violated not just the laws of war, but the basic principles of civilization itself. When the council announced their verdict, the chamber fell silent. The XN3 leaders were found guilty of all charges. Their punishment would include full reparations to Earth, dismantling of their biological weapons program, and long-term supervision of their military activities. But the most important changes came in the weeks after the trial. The council passed new laws strengthening the protection of medical vessels. All hospital ships would now carry enhanced defensive systems and be protected by armed escorts. The attack on the Mercy had exposed a weakness in galactic law, and now that weakness was being fixed. Dr. Martinez returned to the newly repaired Mercy 3 months later. The ship looked different now, its hull strengthened and its systems upgraded. But its mission remained the same, helping those in need across the frontier worlds. The new defensive shields are online, Officer Patterson reported during their first mission briefing, and we have 2 escort ships standing by. No one will catch us unprepared again. CMO Bennett showed Martinez the improved medical base, now equipped with secure data systems and emergency protocols. We're stronger now, he said, but we haven't forgotten who we are. We're healers first, even after everything that happened. The Mercy's first mission after the repairs took them back to the frontier colonies. As they approached their first stop, Dr. Martinez stood at her familiar window, watching the stars. The ship's red cross still glowed proudly on its hull, but now it was a symbol of not just healing, but of strength. Message from the colony. Nurse Wright called out. They've got 20 patients waiting for us. Mostly routine cases this time. Martinez smiled, preparing for their arrival. The XN3 had tried to destroy Earth's ability to help others, but they had failed. Instead, they had made the hospital ships and their crews stronger, more determined than ever to carry out their mission of mercy. As the ship settled into orbit around the colony, Martinez thought about everything that had changed. The attack on the Mercy had been meant to hide a terrible crime. Instead, it had revealed the truth and brought justice. More importantly, it had shown that Earth's commitment to helping others couldn't be broken by force or fear. The hospital ship's engines hummed softly as they prepared to receive their first patients. The Mercy was back doing what it did best, bringing hope and healing to those who needed it most. And this time, they were ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at them.